This is shocking. This is unbelievable. I can't believe what's happening. Sometimes I really just have to scratch my head as I'm reading these articles and putting this information together for you guys. I have to pinch myself like, is this real? How can they get away with this? This isn't about climate. This isn't about saving the planet. This isn't about emissions. It's about putting money in their pockets, trillions of dollars worth, and controlling the people. There's a handful of folks out there who want to be at the top, the elitists that are pushing for this great agenda reset by the year 2030, and it is evident of what their plans are. And guess what? It's only going to get worse from here on out. We cannot allow this to happen. We can't let them have their way. All right, guys, check this one out. So the World Economic Forum, or the WEF, they are pushing for climate change, and they're pushing for climate change measures that are similar to those that were forced on us using COVID modeling. Now check this out. And according to CNN, U.S. climate envoy John Kerry defended his plan to raise cash for climate action by selling carbon emission offsets to companies and telling CNN there was not enough money in any country in the world to actually solve this problem.
We're not formally negotiating at this point, but our hope is that within a short span of time, it will become possible for us to really get together again in full measure and do the things we need to be doing as the two leading emitters in the world and as the two largest economies in the world. China and the United States really need to cooperate on this. Well, there's nothing, I mean, competition is a pretty normal thing in the world of business. Businesses always compete for market share, for product line, and so forth. It will cost citizens around the world trillions of more dollars.
What I tell you guys is about that money. All right, guys, so I want to share a crazy story with you all that if I hadn't researched it, I probably wouldn't have believed it either myself. So the World Economic Forum, or the WEF, is making a strong push for climate change measures similar to those forced on the world using past COVID modeling. So for example, basically they said, everything we did to force and manipulate people during COVID might be the way to push through all this green energy agenda nonsense. So we all know how the World Economic Forum has been trying to infiltrate the United States through presidents and through governors and through mayors and whatnot. And so now it appears as though the Great Reset is trying to push their agenda through other world leaders, but most recently through John Kerry. And now through John Kerry, they're saying it's time to go after climate change, and similar to how they saw how they could control people during the COVID pandemic. Now, I want to expand on that further, but first, I want to share with you what John Kerry told CNN in a recent interview. So when speaking to CNN at the COP27 climate summit in Egypt, Kerry said the world cannot avoid the worst effects of the climate crisis without private money, and that's because governments are not willing to pay what's needed. So Kerry's plan to finance the renewable energy transition in these vulnerable countries is by allowing someone else to cut their planet warming emissions instead of cutting their own. And he's raised concerns among climate experts. Now, many have warned that selling carbon credits could discourage companies from making real cuts to emissions. But Kerry has made his views very clear. Kerry told CNN that, and I quote, "We desperately need money, and it takes trillions of dollars, and no government that I know of is ready to put trillions of dollars into this on an annual basis," is what he said. Now, Kerry also said that, "I'm absolutely convinced that it is one of the few ways that we have to be able to produce the amount of capital we need to accelerate this transition." So it's like almost as though their push is for climate, but their first focus is for money. You can't just go about climate change. You have to have trillions of dollars to do it. So let's focus on the money first. Let's hold a summit in Egypt that utilizes tons of resources that ultimately have an impact on the global climate, to talk about fixing the global climate, which is really just a way to talk about money. So the United Nations Secretary General warned that shadow markets for carbon credits cannot undermine genuine emission reduction efforts. And Kerry admitted that carbon trading can be problematic when there aren't sufficient rules or guardrails and you don't have environmental integrity. It still blows my mind that we want to talk about carbon credits and undermining genuine emissions reductions while we're flying jets to Egypt to have these conversations. Have you ever heard of Zoom? But anyway, Kerry also said that he wants to set up a system that would be tightly controlled. Yeah, that's what I was telling you guys about. the control, tightly controlled. Kerry told CNN that I met with the Secretary General yesterday, and he was very clear that he doesn't object to all of them. Kerry was referring to his carbon offset programs, and he added that he objects to the ones that are ripping things off, but we talked about the tightest possible accountability, and I am absolutely convinced that it is one of the few ways that we have to be able to produce the amount of capital we need to accelerate this transition. And so the International Energy Agency said last month that governments must triple their annual clean energy investments to $4 trillion by 2030 if the world is to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. So let's pay attention here. We need $4 trillion by 2030. Enter the Great Reset. But it only expects global investments in low carbon energy to increase to $2 trillion a year until the end of the decade. So that is a tremendous amount of money, folks. And where exactly do you think they're going to get it from? I'll give you two guesses. And here's a hint. It ain't coming from them. So submit your answers in the comment section below. All right. So now back to that crazy story that I was telling you about. So the World Economic Forum, or WEF, is pushing for climate change measures similar to those forced on the world using COVID modeling. And basically, they said that everything we did to force and manipulate people during the COVID pandemic might be the way to push through all this green energy agenda. If that doesn't knock your socks off, then I don't know what will. And now it appears that the World Economic Forum has been trying to infiltrate the United States through John Kerry, and they are saying it's time to go about climate change in a similar manner to how we control people during COVID. Now, if you think you weren't controlled, I want to remind you of a phrase called shelter in place and essential workers and show me your vaccine card. However, there's even been suggestions of climate lockdowns where people would be locked in their home and blocked from driving their car if their neighborhood or their city or their county became too polluted. New car technology. The semiconductor chips aren't just to add new features and improve your driving experience. No, it's to control the vehicle from remote locations. Right now, imagine how they could use this to their advantage to manipulate voting or to control certain groups of people, not to mention backing people in the corners with the extremely high price of food, which could also drive votes. But at the end of the day, this is just about controlling the people. And now John Kerry also said that we should give private companies financial incentives to rush through climate change. Although some of these climate changes are credits and it won't actually change the climate. It just puts money into an account that probably has zero oversight and will be used to fund other projects and agendas. Ideas that can then be paid for and funded by American taxpayers. Basically get entrepreneurs and capitalists to start building products and strategies that the U.S. government would then pay for using taxpayer money. Or, I'm sorry, carbon credits. For example, these miracle drugs from Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Moderna were rushed and then forced onto the people with scare tactics and social pressure, lies, hidden data, cover-ups, and these drug companies and owners were making billions and billions of dollars off of the government. But in all actuality, it was actually off the American taxpayers. So John Kerry says that this model of making people comply seems to work very well. Well, yeah, when you force them to do it, when you force anybody to do anything, yeah, it seems to work pretty well. If given a choice, I highly doubt that things would have played out the same way that they did. And also now, given a second choice, as people have already witnessed what happened the first time, fool me twice, shame on me. So Kerry also said it's worth the risk to ensure humans survive. So basically control the humans, manipulate them, and then make them do whatever it is we want in order to, quote unquote, save their lives. Seems kind of sketch to me. But Kerry has admitted that these brilliant planet-saving ideas are coming from the unelected billionaires at Davos through the World Economic Forum that are trying to control the planet by controlling the people and by controlling the governments. All right, so basically instead of just controlling people or a country, they want to control the whole damn planet by controlling all of the governments and getting them to comply. Can you imagine such a world where you no longer have a say, no longer even have the idea of having a say? Now let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Are you on board with this idea? Do you want to be locked down, or do you want the government to be able to remotely shut off your car and block your ability to go to work and support your family, ultimately giving them the power freedom and ability to wipe you out, and eliminating your ability to get to the hospital if you needed to in an emergency, or just go to the grocery store for basic food and necessities. They don't want you to do something, they can literally force it on you and make it so you have to do it, or make it so you can't do anything at all and just lock you down. Oh, you drove too many miles this month on your car, creating too much emissions? Locked down. As if paying your taxes weren't enough. Now they're going to have ways to lock you down if you don't do what they want you to do. But the WEF and John Kerry may have different plans for remaking the United States, or should I say controlling. Meanwhile, the head of the United Nations says that the Earth is on a pathway to hell, as countries around the world don't seem to really care about climate change. And he demanded the world governments pay for climate change, and he's demanding that they pay $2 trillion a year for it. Perhaps maybe instead of paying $2 trillion that the Earth feels like justice has been served, these UN leaders should stop lining their own pockets, and maybe they should use that money to start planting trees and cleaning the ocean. Maybe park their jets for a little while. That would give us more oxygen, right? Or at least less emissions. But what do I know? I'm just some guy here sitting talking into this little fuzzy microphone. Now, I'm going to bring you guys some more updates on this as they unfold, but I can tell you right now, things are not looking too good for us, and I'm going to make sure I am prepared for what this might mean in the future. And with that being said, I'm working on finishing up a video to release soon with a list of all the things that I'm doing to prepare for the imminent economic collapse and possible market crashes that are soon to come. You're not going to want to miss that one. Oh, and also some very shocking and disturbing information about the OPEC and NOPEC oil crisis and Saudi Arabia that we are in the middle of, which will make the current diesel shortage panic seem like a walk in the park. And I'm going to explain how and why U.S. gas prices are going up so high, and also just how high they could go, and how much, or should I say, how little oil we have left in our SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserves. So you're not going to want to miss that. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you'll be notified immediately when those videos are released. Thank you all for watching. Take care, be safe, and I will see you real soon. Bye.